Welcome to Realm Painters, and welcome to week 3 of ORKTOBER. So last week was Jay's solo project, which was the Stampa, as you should have seen. And this week I'll be doing Gobsprakk, Mouth of Mork. So the reason I'm doing ORKS instead of ORKS this ORKTOBER is mainly because honestly I like their style so much more than ORKS. I think it's because the ORKS have like a more realistic look. They're slim, they're creepy. I just really like their creepiness to them, while ORKS are more like chunky and cartoony, which I think that's pretty cool, but I think ORKS are more my style. And also their Age of Sigmar, which I don't know about you, but I love playing Age of Sigmar, so it's just a win-win. Like last week's video, this isn't necessarily a tutorial, this is more of like a paint along. But if you enjoy these videos, let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. But other than that, let's get into painting. I began day 1 with Gobsprakk himself, since he's more straightforward to paint, since I'll be painting with just a brush compared to his Corpse Ripa Volcha, which will be a mix of regular painting and airbrushing. With that, I started off with the skin, which if you were curious what recipe I used for ORKS, go check out our week 1 ORKTOBER video where Jay and I showed you how to paint orc and orc skin. Each one is pretty straightforward, so if you're curious, go check it out. After the skin, I went ahead and continued with the rags and all of his accessories. It was quite simple getting all the colors down, and made sure to put more detail onto the sections in the front compared to the back since he's going to be sitting on his Volcha. But the staff was probably the most interesting part to figure out. The potion bottle was probably the most trust the process section, since I tried to make the glass shine like in the box art. It was looking a little funky before I painted the leather straps holding the bottle, where it finally pieced together and had me liking the final result. But overall, I think day 1 was very successful since I got him all done in one day. Putting him on the Volcha gets me really excited to see the final result. He looks like such a tiny little guy. Now I get to look forward in doing some airbrushing for the Volcha, which totally is not my first project doing airbrushing before. So I guess we'll see how that goes. Now, before I get all willy-nilly with the airbrush, I decided to go and airbrush some of the orcs I have, just so I can get a feel for how the airbrush works, because I did not want to go and just spray it all on my Volcha and make it look all crusty. So with some of the orc guys I have that haven't been painted yet, I used the airbrush and I airbrushed some of the skin just so I can get a feel for it, and I think that made me way more relaxed in using the airbrush. Luckily, my first color would be black, so honestly, that just gave me more time to practice my mad airbrushing skills. And then it was followed with some brown on his body and made a gradient on his feathers from black, brown to red. it turned out exactly how I wanted it to go. To be fair, I kind of forgot to do his neck and the underside of... Sorry, we got a cracked out cat. Bunny, get off the table. Don't drink the yucky paint water. Get off the table. What was I saying? To be fair, I kind of forgot to do their neck and the underside of the tail. But honestly, I'll just fix that with a regular brush later on. Once I got all the airbrush areas done, I decided to paint some details on his tail and wings before my motivation kind of fell a little bit. Having to paint bigger areas kind of makes my mind wander, and I get lost in what to go for first. So after a bit of highlighting on the wings, I decided to actually start on Gobsprakk's throne. Personally, I love painting knickknacks, so when I first saw this model on the website, turning him around and seeing all of those little knickknack things, I couldn't wait to paint them. So I changed my sails and painted his throne before continuing with his vulture. I had a great time adding all these details. I especially enjoyed the potion bottle and the little rat that's stealing some grain from the bag on top. And during this painting section, I realized the git that's dangling on the side is holding not just a random plant, but one with the cutest little sassy face. Now that I got all the knickknacks done, I thought a good way to end the day would be to paint the banners on the vulture. The symbols on the banners were really fun to paint. I added some blood for the blood gods and added it into the crevices, and I did some dry brushing to get it all like angry looking. And overall, I think it turned out really good. And that's it for day 2, so we'll see if I can finish the front side of his high chair, I mean his throne, including the vulture's clothes. Now onto the vulture clothes. This was pretty simple process overall. I got all the wooden pieces and brackets all rusted up before getting Vulture's shirt all done, and like the 2 pokey barbs on the banner, I added some cool blue oxidation onto the Vulture's breastplate. And once I got all his clothes done, I was able to start on the vulture's face and all of the details that I may have procrastinated on earlier. That was a hard word for Elmo. The vulture's face was definitely an interesting part to figure out color palette wise. I wanted him to have a pale face, but not pristine, so I made sure to dirty it up with some wash and lightly dry brush its wrinkles to bring out all of its wrinkliness. And honestly, if you're ever interested in painting this model, I highly recommend using a dry brush to dry brush all of the wrinkles of the vulture's skin. I think when I did that, it turned out really good. And if you're interested in the skin I did a base coat of Rhinox and then a dry brushing of Dune Bull Brown. And I think it turned out really good and it was really easy, so do that. But now that I'm getting him finished up, I also had time to do a quick dry brush of red under the vulture's tail feathers. And you can't even tell that I forgot to airbrush it, right? Now I got 2/3 of the model done and I'm feeling really happy with it. Putting Gobsprakk back on the completed Vulture gets me so pumped on seeing the completed piece. We'll just have to see how well I do on the base, for it may take a second to finish since I'm going to do some pretty detailed stuff to it, but let's get on to the next day. Alright, let's whip this up. So before I started adding the texture, I wanted to finish the model part of the base, so that would be the tree trunk and the carcass. I want to make the trunk have a greenish sickly tint of brown in order to contrast with the richer tones of brown I use for Gobsprakk in the Vulture. And since I'm trying to create the base with a swampy tone, the use of Plaguebear's contrast and stippling of Castellan green should help get that sickly vibe. I especially enjoyed yuckifying the corpse. I used a mix of blood for the blood gods and Plaguebear's flesh in order to make it look rotten and slimy. It's just so much fun making models look gross. Should I make a Death Guard army then? Or should I make a Maggotkin of Nurgle army? What do you guys think? Anyways, now that I have the plastic terrain done, let's get the texture put down. Before adding texture though, I made sure to mark out where I wanted to add some swampy water. Didn't I tell you guys earlier that I'm adding resin to the base? Yes? No? I don't remember, but I'm in fact adding that to the base. I actually did a small test on a random base to see what techniques I wanted to use in the swamp, because I wanted to add some green blobs and yuckiness in the water, but I was just too scared to wing it on the model itself. Which I'm really happy about, because if I didn't do any testing beforehand, I would have totally messed it up real bad. But I got the technique that I liked, which was to stipple on some Castellan green on the bottom before adding the resin. Then before I cured the resin, I added some drops of Plaguebear's contrast, and with a toothpick I swished it around while adding little dots of it as well. Once I had the resin all cured, I did notice that the Plaguebear sunk the resin a bit, so I did another thin layer of resin to fill in all the crevices. Now getting all these big items completed, all I needed to finish the base was to add some grass tufts and some other greenery. Also, quick note, I wanted to add some birch tree seeds onto the base itself because I saw online that people were using them as miniature leaves. So luckily it is fall currently, so I was able to just go outside in my backyard and find some of them. I think it turned out really good. So I guess other than that, let's see the final result. So this wraps up week 3 of Orktober. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had as fun as I did painting it as you watched it. I don't know. And if you did like the video, please like and subscribe and comment down below if you want to see any other big projects like this. But don't worry, this isn't the end of Orktober. We have one video left, so make sure to stay tuned for that. That should be out next week. But other than that, I guess we'll see you in the next realm.